Hey everyone, today's learning objective in our lesson is we will construct linear functions in slope-intercept form. I want you to focus on our learning goal for today. Construct means to build linear functions and or in slope-intercept form, which would be y equals mx plus b. I have my concept development where linear functions are a straight line that when graphed, they have a constant rate of change and they have an initial value. So if you forgot what each part represents in y equals mx plus b, I need to review that so that you're prepared for this lesson. I have linear functions have a constant rate of change. My constant rate of change represents the variable m. So my constant rate of change represents the variable m. That is the slope between 2 points or two related quantities on a line. Next, I have a linear function has an initial value which represents b. Or it is also known as the y-intercept. It is where the x value is 0, y is the initial value. So it's the starting point of the line. So remember that it always starts on the y-axis, the initial value. Next, slope-intercept form. I'm going to circle that in a bright yellow. Slope-intercept form is known as y equals mx plus b. So slope-intercept form is known as y equals mx plus b. So looking at our example, I'm going to write this over here so you guys can see this. At my example, on a graph, I have the initial value starts at 100. That is the starting point on the line. So B equals $100. How do I know it's $100? Because I'm going to look at what each X and Y value is labeled. X represents time in days, and Y represents money saved in dollars. So the initial value when X is 0, Y is my initial value. So in this case, Y would be 100. Put an arrow there so you guys can see that. Next, I'm going to choose 2 points from the graph or from the line. I'm going to choose 2 and 200. Next, I'm going to choose 4 and 300. I'm going to label my first ordered pair x1, y1. My second ordered pair x2, y2. And I'm going to sub it into my slope formula. So if you guys forgot about the slope formula, it's m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If you got it, great. After I finish doing that and I sub it into each specific part, I have my rate of change is 50. So m equals 50, and I'm going to sub it into the m spot, and I have b is 100. Now I constructed back into the equation or back into slope-intercept form. So if you have any questions, please pause the video, rewatch the section that you might have a little confusion on. Please make sure to email us and or jump onto our live lesson tomorrow, tutorial time and office hours, so that we may help you in other specific areas within this lesson. All right, next guys, let's jump into skill development. So step number 1, let's define the unknown quantities with variables. So I'm going to label my X variable. I know my X variable is the horizontal line that goes from right to left. Next, I'm going to label my y variables. So I have my x-axis, and now I have my y-axis. Y-axis is vertical, it goes up and down. So let's calculate the rate of change first. It says the linear function of x is graphed on the coordinate plane below. What is the equation of this line? So when it's asking for the equation, and notice up here, guys, we have our concept in a blue box. It's slope-intercept form. I need to put it back into y equals mx plus b. So let's choose 2 points from this line. I am going to choose 0 and 5. Next, I am going to choose in between 2 and 4 is 3. Sorry, guys. 3 and 3. I'm going to label my first ordered pair x1, y1, and my second ordered pair x2, y2. I'm going to sub it in. I'm on step number 2 into the change of y over the change of x, or I'm going to sub it back into m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're going to do just that. So m equals 3 minus 5 over 3 minus 0. Now I have m equals negative 2 over positive 3. So my rate of change is m equals negative 2/3. And I'm going to just leave it that way in fraction form. Step number 3, let's identify the y-intercept, or let's calculate it if necessary. In this case, I know that if x is 0, y is my initial value. In a linear function, a line always has to start on the y-axis. So knowing that, I know if x is 0, I'm going to look up here. Where does it cross the y-axis? It crosses it at positive 5. So b equals positive 5. Now I can construct back into y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to write my equation. And I kind of ran out of room, guys, so please bear with me. I'm going to write it up top here. I'm going to erase it. Y equals negative 2/3 x plus 5. So I just constructed the equation for this line on the graph. So now I want you to pause the video and try the next one on your own, on another sheet of paper, or try it on your whiteboard. All right, guys, thanks for coming back. We're on problem number 2 of the skill development. I have a linear function of x is graphed on the coordinate plane below. What is the equation of the line? I'm going to quickly just walk you through this. Double check your work. I'm going to choose 2 ordered pairs from this line. I'm going to choose 0 and negative 6. Next, I'm going to choose, let's see, all right, got it. I want a point that's specifically on an intersection that I can easily locate. So in between 2 and 4 is 3. So I'm going to choose 3 and negative 2. Now I'm going to label my ordered pairs. First ordered pair is x1, y1. Second ordered pair is x2, y2. And I'm going to solve for the rate of change first. So let's set this up. M equals negative 6 minus parentheses negative 2. Remember, I want to put in parentheses a negative so that I don't mess up on my signs. Now I have 0 minus 3. So as I'm working this out, I know that a negative next to a negative becomes a positive because negative times negative is positive. So this becomes a plus. So negative 6 plus 2 leaves me with negative 4. Then I have 0 minus 3, leaves me with the negative 3, or I can leave it as positive 4/3. And I'm just going to leave it in fraction form, even if it's an improper fraction. Now that I have my m value, I'm going to solve for my initial value, or the y-intercept. When x is 0, I'm going to look where it crosses the y-axis, and it crosses it at negative 6. So b equals negative 6. Now I'm going to put it back together. So I have y equals m, which is 4/3, x plus or minus, and this one I'm going to just write the minus sign, negative 6. So I just constructed, ladies and gentlemen, the equation for the graph. My second set of ordered pairs. Now we're going into word problems, but this is a 1-quadrant graph. So let's define the unknown quantities. X is time in hours, and Y is the total cost in dollars. So an electrician charges a set fee plus an hourly rate for a service call. The graph shows the total cost of a service call based on the number of hours. Construct an equation to represent the relationship between cost and hours. So I'm going to find 2 points on my line first. So in this problem, I'm going to choose 2 and 200. Next, I'm going to choose 6 and 400. And I'm going to set this up. I have x1, y1, x2, y2. And I'm going to set this up in my slope formula. M equals 400 minus 200 over 6 minus 2. I have 400 minus 200 is 200. 6 minus 2 is 4. And I'm actually going to draw a line so you guys can see my work going in progress, in progressing order. Now, I'm going to simplify the fraction. M equals 50 over 1, or m equals 50. 200 divided by 4 is 50. And to double check my work, because I want to make sure I have the right answer, make sure you guys have your calculators out as well. Yep, got it right. So next, I'm going to find my initial value. So I'm on step number 3. When x is 0, y is my initial value. So the initial value would be 100. So I have my m and I have my b value in this equation. Now I get to construct. So y equals 50x plus 100. Y equals 50x plus 100 is my equation to this graph. Last problem, I want you to pause the video and try this one on your own. All right, guys, thanks for coming back. I have Carlos stepped onto an elevator. The graph below represents the descent of the elevator. Construct an equation to represent the relationship between the height and the time. So again, x represents time in seconds, and y represents height in feet. So I'm going to choose 2 ordered pairs. I am going to choose, let's see, I want perfect intersecting. I'm going to choose 0 and 70. Next, I am going to choose 4 and 60. Now I'm going to set this up. x1, y1, x2, y2. So m equals 60 minus 70 over 4 minus 0. M equals negative 10 over 4. M equals, I'm going to double check my work because I want to make sure, negative 10 divided by 4 would leave me with negative 2.5. Now I'm going to construct my initial value. I'm going to find it. I'm going to locate it. When x is 0, my initial value is on the y-axis, which would be 70. So now I'm going to construct my equation back into this, and I have y equals negative 2.5x plus 70. And actually I ran out of room, so let me rewrite this so that you guys can see this. Y equals negative 2.5x plus 70. All right, so it's there. I rewrote it a couple times so you guys can see. I want you to pause the video, double check your work, and then unpause it and continue watching the last set of problems.
Hey everyone, welcome back from spring break. I haven't got a chance to talk to all of you yet, but I hope you had a fun and safe week. And we're just going to continue on with the lesson. This is our last set of paired problems, and Miss Yamas already completed the other couple. So here we go. So we're going to start by reading this paragraph. So Miss Yang is buying new books for the Media Center. The graph below shows the relationship between the amount of books, B, and how many days, T, the school has been open this year. Write an equation to represent this relationship. Okay, so my first step, I need to define the unknown quantities with variables. I know that my x-axis is days since school began, and that's labeled as T. And then my books is my y-axis, and this is labeled as B. So step 1 is done. We know that the x-axis is going to be T, and my y-axis is going to be B. Now I need to calculate the rate of change using m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. To do this, I need to pick 2 points from my graph. So I'm going to pick, let's go with, let's see. Well, first, let me see. I see that my scale of my graph is going by, I'm not sure, so I'm going to calculate that. I know this is 0 to 15, and this is 2 spaces. So 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. So my graph's going by 7.5. So to pick 2 points, I know right here, and then on my y-axis, my scale goes from 0 to 1,000. So I know right in between, halfway, 1,000 divided by 2 is 500. So my scale for my y-axis is going by 500, and my scale for my x-axis is going by 7.5. So my first point on this graph, I'm going to label. If it's 500 and then 1,000, and then this would be 1,500, then 2,000, then 2,500, 3,000, and then 3,500. Okay, so my first point on this graph is going to be 0 and 1,500. I need to pick 2 points. Okay, then I'm going to pick this point right here. I need to figure that out. So 15 plus 7.5 is 22.5. And so this is going to be located at 22.5 and 2,000. Okay, my next step. I need to calculate the rate of change. So I'm going to plug these values in. I'm going to make myself a table so I keep my information really clear and organized. So my first value was 0, 1,500, and my second ordered pair was 22.5 and 2,000. So now I'm going to label these. Let's pick a different color. X1, Y1, x2, y2. Okay, so now I just need to set it up. M equals y2 is 2,000 minus y1, 1,500, over x2, which is 22.5, minus x1, which is 0. So now I just have to subtract. M equals 2,000 minus 1,500 is 500, over 22.5 minus 0 is 22.5. I'm going to actually use my calculator here because I'm not sure what 500 divided by 22.5 simplifies to. So I use my calculator. 500 divided by 22.5 equals about, let's say 22.2. Okay, so that is our M value. Okay, we calculated the rate of change. Step 3, identify the y-intercept or calculate it by just locate, or we need to calculate it or identify it. I know that it's where my line passes through the y-axis, and I can see that my y-intercept, my line started here on my graph. So my b value equals 1,500. So when I write this as an equation, I'm going to have, let's see, my y value was books, so b equals, and then I had my m times my days since school began, t, plus my initial value, b. So my books, we don't know how many books, so we're going to write b equals my slope, my m was about 22.2 times time. We don't know how much, how many days it's been, so times time, plus b, our initial value, which was 1,500. And that is my equation. Okay, I'm gonna have you do your problem on the right and write your equation, and then we're gonna go through and check your work. Okay, so welcome back. On your problem, Isaiah is selling candy after school, going door to door. The graph represents how much money D he has in total compared to how many houses H he has visited. So my first step was to label the unknown quantities with variables. So I had houses visited as H, and then we had the money in dollars. So I labeled H and D. My next step was to figure out my scale of my graph. So I know that on my x-axis, it was going by 2.5s. And then on my y-axis, we were going by 50, 50, 100, 150, and then so on. Now my next step is to calculate my rate of change. So I picked 2 points from my graph. I picked 0 and 50, 7.5, and 150. Then I made a table to organize my points. Then I used those to calculate the rate of change. So I had y2, which was 150, minus y1, which is 50, over x2, 7.5, minus my x1 value. Oh, I'm so sorry, 1 second. Okay, over my x1 value, which was 0. So m was approximately 13.3. And then I just needed to identify my y-intercept because I could tell on my graph that it passed through the y-axis right there at 50. So when I make my equation for this graph, I need to use the equation D dollars equals my slope M times my houses visited H plus my initial value B. So when I write this in, I just fill in my slope that I calculated and my B that I identified. So I have dollars equals 13.3 times houses H plus 50, and that should be your equation. Okay, so your next step is to go to Google Classroom and complete your independent practice for today.